Welcome to Biztechasia Women in Leadership Show. In conjunction with International Women's Day 2023, we bring you a Women in Leadership series where we connect you with some of the most successful female leaders in the Asia-Pacific region to uncover the tenacity of each woman leader and how they've pushed boundaries and risen to the top of their respective professions. Our guest today is Pia Broadley. She's the head of APAC of Dropbox. Dropbox is a cloud storage service that lets you save files online and sync them to your devices. Now, to tell us more, Pia, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Brian. I'm excited to be here. Dropbox is a digital workflow platform, so we're a little bit more than what we used to be. If you look back to about 2007 when we started, it was really about getting people access to their files and make a simpler way for them to sync their files. Whereas today, what we're talking about is keeping teams in sync. So we're providing services into businesses as well as individuals.
Now, Pia, what is your footprint like in the Asia-Pacific region?
So we have a broad footprint across Asia-Pacific. The area I look after includes areas like Australia and New Zealand, Singapore, India, South Korea, Malaysia, Vietnam. We've got quite a big footprint in the region.
So Pia, someone like me who's used Dropbox from a very early time, so when you all launched, I think I was one of the early adopters in this part of the world. It's still thought of as primarily a consumer business. Now, break down some of the solutions that you offer businesses in the region, because as you said, it's a workflow solution. You've got solutions from everything from sales to creatives to team lead and project management. Tell us about this.
We really do. So we do have a very successful direct business for consumers. That's not the business I look after. I look after the business to business part of Dropbox. So what that means is providing workflow platform to our customers to be able to keep their business in sync and collaborate really well, both within their organization and also really good strength collaborating with partners outside of their business. So when we look at collaborators, you think of the times they need to collaborate with other organizations. The ability to use Dropbox means they can do that seamlessly, easily able to collaborate, make changes to what they're working on and be able to share it instantly within the business. We've got a few other products that we've brought to market over the years. We've got a great sign product. Dropbox Sign enables people to be able to easily, simply sign any documentation they need. And Docsend is another one we announced a little while ago as well, which enables you to be able to send documents and be able to attach analytics to that, to be able to really look at what's happening with your documents as you send them out of the business.
And that's a very interesting product. When did you launch that, and what is the take-up rate so far?
So Docsend is a fantastic product, really exciting. We're really starting to uncover the use cases. It was grown out of businesses really wanting to send out opportunities to be able to invest. Whereas today we're finding other opportunities. I've got a customer I'm talking to at the moment, which is really interested in using it as a sales tool as they send out their quotes out to their customers. They're wanting to be able to track, where has it gone? Who's getting access to it? Who's looking at what? Did everybody spend time on page 2 or on page 5? And does that generate some questions for me to be able to go back to them, to be able to talk about the relevance of my quote to them? So customers like that from a sales perspective are even looking at Docsense.
And Docsense sounds really interesting, because if you talk about use cases, I'm going through a couple of my head right now, and I think I would like to be a customer of Docsense, which really, because one of the key things that's insights when we send out emails with attachments and documents is a lot of times we don't even know, like you said, whether we may know whether they opened it, but where did they spend the most time? Because when we have the actual conversation with them, if that data is available to us, we then can tailor our presentations based on the time that they spent.
Absolutely. As you send something in an email, you lose control of it. You no longer understand what's going on with that document. But with Docsend, you're able to understand who is accessing it. You can restrict who's accessing it to a particular URL group or to a particular user, so that you can really control who's getting access to your information. And then you can look at the great insights into what are they looking at? What do they spend the most time on? Do they keep going back to one thing over and over again, which means to me that it's time for us to have a conversation about that topic.
Now, Pia, then, if you look at your business as a whole, what are some key trends that you're seeing in the cloud space related to your core businesses?
Oh, there's a lot changing. I think the pandemic has changed a lot for people. I think the call out over the pandemic to be able to do whatever you need to from wherever you are, from whatever device, is fundamental to the Dropbox offering, where Dropbox enables you to be able to do that collaboration everywhere. We're seeing that requirement continuing as we come out of the pandemic time. People are still looking at how they collaborate. Well, there was a lot of quick action at the time of the pandemic. What can we do really quickly with what we have available to make it kind of just work? I'm finding there's a pattern across the business, across all of Asia Pacific, where organizations are really looking at how do they consolidate that? How do they now relook at the technology that they're using and refine it to make sure that they've got the right technology for the right use case?
Now, Pia, I want to zoom in on the key reason why we're here today, the Women in Leadership series, and focusing on those key elements. You're a veteran in the tech business for over 20 years. You're a very big advocate for mentorship, as you believe that this is essential to help young women in STEM unlock opportunities. Tell us about your role as a mentor and what motivates you to mentor these young people.
Motivating young people to be inspired by tech is what works for me. I spend quite a bit of time mentoring. I've particularly done quite a bit of work around young women coming into tech, and also women making a change into tech where they've been in other industries. I'm the same. I came from a different industry. If I go back 20 years, I had another career and I made the transition into tech. So mentoring young women coming into the industry, being able to help them to identify what they need to do to grow in their roles and helping to support them so that they can grow in the tech industry is really important. I think women in the past haven't had as much an opportunity to work in tech, and I think women have a more affinity to mentoring. I'm seeing more women applying to be my mentees than I am men at the moment, because they're looking for that support from other women to be able to help guide the way and show them the experiences that we've had to get to the position that we're in. I personally have had some fantastic, both women and men mentors over the last 20 years, and they've helped me to develop and hone my leadership skills, and it makes a really big difference. So I'm hoping to be able to pass that on to the next generation.
Now, Pia, I want to just zoom in on something you said, that you're not originally from the tech business. How did you make the leap? Because a lot of women perhaps see technology as something a little bit scary, and perhaps by you sharing your leap of faith into tech, that will inspire other women to do the same.
It really was a big change. I was as far away from the tech industry as you can get. I worked in children's services. That's where my qualifications were. I worked running rooms of small children, looking after their physical and emotional development. And I loved it. I was good at it. It was a role that was really fulfilling. But I came across a time where I couldn't progress. There was not an opportunity for me to be able to grow. So I had to look for something new. I wish I could say that I came to tech specifically. I was just lucky. I fell into it. I went into a sales role that grew, and I built out opportunities which landed me right in the middle of the tech center. I had no idea how much I was going to love it and what a great industry it is, but I'm very excited to be there. I took a risk. I had to take a bit of a change, and I've done the same when I've recruited. I've recruited people into the tech industry from completely different industries. A woman I recruited a few years ago came from the beauty industry. She used to manage a beauty salon, was her experience, and I needed someone who was a superpower in customer service, and she was that. She came into the business, she picked up the tech really quickly, and her superpower of customer service made her the best performer in the region within a year.
And you know, that's something, Pia, that not a lot of people do, especially in some markets. You find that in Australia, for example, people tend to hire people from the same industry. And kudos to you for being broad-minded enough to bring people from different backgrounds, which leads me also to the question of, within an Australian context, is the government, are large corporations or startups doing enough to bring women and get women excited about STEM careers?
I think there's a lot being done at the moment. There is work being done, and I'm grateful for the inroads that we're having. I think there is efforts happening from all ends of the spectrum to make STEM more accessible to women, and that's positive progress. Is it enough? I think there's more that needs to be done. At the moment, there is globally only 1 in 4 leaders sitting on large global firms are women. And we really need to step closer into that. I know in some regions we have better statistics where women are more represented in the leadership roles, but we need to continue to drive that across all of our region. There's also been some really interesting recent movements globally. If you look at the resignations by female leaders like New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki, and Meta Chief Business Officer Marnie Levine, all resigned, stating that they needed to be able to focus on their family. So that does ask the question, are we getting work-life balance right? And is it possible for women?
And what is interesting, and you mentioned that, and it actually struck me as quite significant, that these 3 women, and I picked up on those same 3 as well, because they all came around the same time, they had the courage to say, I'm burnt out, I need to take a step back, otherwise I'm not going to be doing as good a job as I was doing before. I think that, and I use the word courage deliberately, a lot of men wouldn't have the same courage to say that.
It certainly shows a great level of self-awareness, doesn't it? Where they're able to take that step back, review their personal and business life, regardless of their heights of success, to be able to work out what's best for them. I think we all need to take a leaf off their book to be able to look at our business and our homes and be able to go, what works for me? And sometimes that means a change.
Now, Pia, you are very, very passionate about diversity, equity, inclusion. Give us a sense of some of the things that you're involved in on a personal level.
You're right. I am really passionate about DEI, and there's been quite a few things I've been involved in. We're lucky at Dropbox that we have a DEI community. We have people full-time employed to look after the diversity, equity, inclusion in our business and really build it into the framework of everything we do at Dropbox. On top of that, I've set up a local inclusion community in the Asia Pacific and Japan region. We've come together. It's by the people, for the people, with an aim to educate and build community around diversity, equity, and inclusion. The idea being that we take the great framework that's been created globally and make it land in our local region, because we have nuances, not just across the APAC region, but in each country in that region, we have nuances. So it's really important that we work on inclusion locally and make sure that it's relevant to us just here. We've done some great activities. We focused last year. We started this up last year. I started it last year. And last year, our big key focuses were on gender, First Nations people, and people with all abilities. And we really honed down on educating our team, getting guidance from people within those communities so that we can really build awareness within the Dropbox community. And we've had some great events and activities that have helped to fund that. We're planning right now for this year. We're kicking it off with a Women's History Month for March to coincide with International Women's Day, which is really exciting. And we're looking to bring some great leaders to speak to our business from the women community to be able to share with our whole community what they've done in their careers and have helped them grow. It's really important that we include everybody in that, not just the women within our community, because allies are just as important as the members of our underrepresented communities.
Now, what are you doing is from a Dropbox context to make sure that your DEI initiatives are not just great on paper, but actually translates to the data and actually translates to outcomes? And I speak specifically because, again, when you wear your APAC hat, you have lots of nationalities that you look after. You've obviously there is also diversity in backgrounds. how do you get less advantaged people or disadvantaged people into roles so that, again, that has a bigger impact on the community?
Yeah, so we have to bed inclusion into everything we do and look for diversity when we're doing it. For example, when we're hiring, we need to look out into the community. We need to change the way we write our ads so they're not written in a way that's specifically only looking for the same as what we've had before. We really need to reach out and look out for what we're wanting to get as a change. We all know that bringing diversity into the workplace improves our performance, that we can significantly improve our revenue and our sales performance against competitors if we've got diversity in the workplace. So you really need to be doing it in everything you do. At Dropbox, we measure this. We measure how much of our business is from underrepresented minorities, from different genders, so that we can capture that. We know that our underrepresented minority population grew by 4% year on year this year. So by being able to measure that, we're able to really talk about the success that we're having. We also do a bunch of stuff to help individuals within the business to be able to be part of our community. The DEI community is a great example where that inclusion community, everybody's invited to participate. Anyone who cares and has a passion for any part of diversity can be included in that. Great opportunity for them to be involved, to talk about the topics that are important to them. Also to take on leadership roles within that community. We give them opportunities to be able to be leaders of groups, to be able to speak to the community and really give them an opportunity to be able to grow.
Now, you once took a 4-year sabbatical from work to be a primary caregiver for your child. Share with us, what was that like, and what was that like for you as a journey even? First of all, to take that step, and then after that, go through that 4-year journey, and then the catalyst for you to come back into the workforce.
Yeah, I kind of thought about it. I planned for it. I was lucky enough to have my family when I was ready to have my family. I had 2 children. I stayed at home until the youngest turned 2, which was my plan. And then I launched straight back into the workplace. I returned back to work full time because that was what was right for me. I weighed up the options. I could return back to work sooner. I could return back part-time. What worked for me and for my family was that I took those 4 years off. I focused entirely on the family during that time. And when I returned back to work, I really dove back in. I love working. My children who are teenagers now know how much I love to work, and I hope I inspire them to find jobs that they love as well. And it was really important that I came back in and was really heavily involved and really engaged in the workplace without neglecting my children. Part of that has to do with communication in the home. So I'm lucky enough to have a husband who was prepared to take those primary caregiving duties. He still worked full time, but he was close to home, he was close to school. So he was able to do those primary pieces while I was a little bit further away. I traveled a lot with my work, but between us, we ensured that our children were always cared for while our businesses were also cared for as well.
Now, so Pia, this brings an interesting point. When you make that transition to primary caregiver from corporate women, a lot of times there are a lot of anxieties, also frustrations that creep in. Did you go through things like that as well?
Absolutely. I've had lots of different roles. So I've been a parent without children, a woman working without children. I've been a working mother. I've been a stay-at-home mother. And because of my previous career, I've been the caregiver of children that allowed other women to be able to return to the workforce. So I've seen this from multiple different angles, and I can tell you all of them have their challenges. There's not a right answer. It's about personal need and wants, and it's about what you're looking for at that time, which is not always the same thing. It was a big step to move back into the workforce and refocus my career. And it was a good step for me, but I couldn't have done it without the support of my family. So really important to have that balance between the workplace and the home.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation in conjunction with International Women's Day. I think it's been a real eye-opener. But before we leave, I've got to ask you to share 2 things with us. One, what advice would you give Australian companies in particular who are perhaps behind the curve compared to some of their peers in the region in terms of their diversity and inclusion initiatives?
I think it's more than just the companies. I think it's the leaders within those organizations. I think we need to be aware that by bringing diversity into our workplaces, we are improving performance. We are going to, even if you just look at it from their own perspective and performance perspective, by bringing diversity into the workplace, especially by bringing diversity into leadership roles, then there is an absolute bottom line result as far as businesses are concerned. And as leaders, we need to look at what our role is as a leader. Our role is not just to manage, our role is to lead and to guide the way and to bring all of our staff together to be able to bring their whole selves to work every day. So I guess my reach out to them is to ask themselves, are they doing enough? And I think there's people who feel like they're not part of an underrepresented minority, so they're not sure what to do. Your role is just as important. Allies are just as important. If we only ever speak to the people that are the members of an underrepresented minority, we're never going to get educated across the board. So as leaders, we need to go forth and actually make that happen.
And my second question and final question for you is, what are your final thoughts that you'd like to leave the audience with before we end this interview?
I think the most important thing here is we are all different. And I think from a women in business perspective, as a woman in business, I'd like to think that all of the leaders in the marketplace in tech actually have a look at their business and really think about what they're doing for women in tech in particular to celebrate International Women's Day. What are they going to do differently to help support the women in their business?
Pia, thank you very much for coming on the show.
My absolute pleasure.
Now, we've been speaking to Pia Broadley. She's the head of APAC at Dropbox. I'm Brian Fernandez, and you've been watching and listening to Biztech's Women in Leadership show. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It'll also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.